I'd like to now welcome our very distinguished witnesses, beginning with Ambassador Donald Yamamoto, who is no stranger to this subcommittee, having testified before us several times in the last sessions of Congress and again a few weeks ago. He is now serving with distinction as the Acting Assistant Secretary in the Bureau of African Affairs in the U.S. Department of State. His prior assignments including serving as U.S. Ambassador to Ethiopia, as Deputy Assistant Secretary of State in the Bureau for African Affairs, and most recently as Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary in that Bureau. He also served in Djibouti, Eritrea, Japan, and China, and again has had a long and distinguished career in the Foreign Service. We'll then hear from Mr. Earl Gast, who is USAID's Assistant Administrator for Africa and has worked at USAID in leading development programming, especially in post-conflict and transitioning societies. He's also been a frequent witness before this subcommittee. We always benefit from his insights and counsel. Prior to his current position, Mr. Gast served in Afghanistan, Colombia, Eastern Europe, and Rome. Mr. Gast is also one of the first USAID employees stationed in Iraq. He played an equally important role in developing the post-crisis strategy for Kosovo, overseeing all mission operations. Most prominently, he received the agency's award for heroism and the Distinguished Unit Award. Gentlemen, please proceed, beginning with Ambassador Yamamoto.
Thank you very much, Chairman Smith and Ranking Member Bass and the other honored members. And I ask for submission of my full statement for the record.
Without objection, so ordered.
I want to, on my oral presentation, I want to add points that are kind of different from the statement that I'm submitted. Today's hearing raises issues that will advance the hope of Ethiopia's people for the future of their country. Yet the path that lays ahead will be marked on how the people, the government, the opposition, and civil society can work cooperatively and harmoniously together to come to terms not only with Melis's legacy, but how they will work together to define or possibly redefine the future course for Ethiopia. What Melis achieved when he was a prime minister for Ethiopia was economic growth, set political policies that have guided Ethiopia since the fall of the Derg, as well as the establishment of Ethiopia's regional and international importance. The Prime Minister became the indispensable negotiator in Somalia, the critical mediator in Sudan, the eloquent spokesperson for all of Africa on climate and development challenges. He proved to be an effective person whose persuasive and forceful negotiation style and intellectual depth of understanding of issues set the tone and course of discussions on important domestic and regional issues. His articulate discussions of issues with crystal clear and insightful assessment distinguished him as a political leader, but also brought Ethiopia and Africa heightened respect and authority. However, the cost of his efforts also raised concerns. As ambassador, I raised on behalf of the United States our voice on the narrowing of political space, and we spoke clearly and decisively that the laws which were passed in and by themselves may appear logical and necessary, but when taken together and implemented without judgment or judicious temperament could prove not only a severe obstacle to personal freedoms and economic independence, but also, if pursued without wisdom, could significantly alter Ethiopia's image in a profoundly negative manner. How Ethiopia's people, political rulers, opposition groups, and civil society work together to deal with not only the legacy of Melis, but to define where the country moves forward in a hopeful direction, or falls into gridlock of political partisanships dominated by uncompromising views, where alternate voices are based on what is merely wrong rather than what needs to be done. What must be achieved to realize a more democratic and hopeful future for Ethiopia remains a challenge. Ethiopia, again, I believe, is an important crossroad in which the country, mindful of its past, has the opportunity to move forward. As Congresswoman Bass said, she and Secretary Kerry were at the African Union Summit, and there, Prime Minister Haile Mariam, as President of the African Union, outlined a key direction, not only for Ethiopia, but for all of Africa. That is to invest in the economy, to realize a transformation to a more technical world, investment in technology and vocational education, commitment to infrastructure development, overcoming bureaucratic red tape and unreasonable laws, and finally to promote democratic values. These are great, but there are also great challenges as well as great hopes. If not handled astutely and with great political skill, as well as courageous and decisive action, Ethiopia may also go down a very different path in which its future could be sacrificed to partisan politics. It will take much understanding, compromise, tempered by deep commitment to achieving what is in the interest of the people of Ethiopia, and not in deference to political positions or personal preferences. And so the United States will forever remain dedicated to the core values and goals of democratic values and human rights policies, as well as economic prosperity and security. We stand firmly with Ethiopia, its people, its future generation, to achieve together a better future for Ethiopia and for Africa. And I welcome your questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador. Mr. Gast.
Good morning, Chairman Smith. Good morning, Ranking Member Bass, and good morning to all other members of the subcommittee. And thank you very much for inviting me here to speak before you today on an important topic, and that is Ethiopia after Prime Minister Meles. The death last year of Prime Minister Meles Zenawi marked the end of an era in Ethiopia. Fully half of the population had never known another leader or another style of leadership, and his passing brought with it hope and trepidation for the country's future. 10 months later, the ruling EPRDF remains firmly in control of all organs of government. In recent years, Ethiopia has experienced a period of relative stability, marked improvements in the well-being of its people, and an increasingly important position in the international community. The government's Productive Safety Net Program, or PSNP, which provides food and cash in exchange for building community infrastructure, helped provide 7.2 million persons with income and sources and prevented them from slipping into crisis during the 2011 to 2012 drought. The availability of education and health services has flourished, even in remote communities, and economic opportunities are expanding for youth and women. Ethiopia is also one of the United States' key African partners in fighting terrorism, promoting national and regional food security, and providing peacekeepers in some of the most difficult locations in Africa. But at the same time, the Ethiopian government systematically limits space for political parties, independent media, and civil society to operate, significantly constraining the ability of people to influence government decisions and hold their government accountable. And you said we have a two-pronged approach to democracy, human rights, and governance issues. The first integrates these issues into our core programs in other sectors to support social and economic resilience and encourage communities to participate in decision-making. For example, by supporting the creation of decentralized financial systems at 76 government hospitals, USAID not only improved the quality of medical services, but we also strengthened these institutions in financial management, accountability, and transparency. The second prong of our approach in Ethiopia capitalizes on opportunities as they arise to promote respect for human and civil rights. Toward this end, we support political dialogue, legal education, and court reforms through a variety of organizations and through the government itself. Although there are major impediments to working with Ethiopian civil society groups, we do support the organizations that accountably deliver services in a manner that is respectful to human rights. Our strategy is capitalized on Ethiopia's commitment to poverty reduction by supporting sustainable development through community-based decision-making and public involvement in every area of our work, whether it's agriculture, economic growth, health, education. We encourage social accountability mechanisms such as scorecards and participatory budgeting to help citizens hold government accountable for service delivery and institute the practice of participation and dialogue. And by working together with the government of Ethiopia on our shared agendas to advance economic growth and development, we are fostering opportunities for dialogue about public participation and transparency while having real positive effects that will accumulate over time into significant change that will increasingly enable and encourage democratic governance. Ongoing dialogue with the Ethiopian government creates opportunities to advocate reforms that will hold government accountable and gradually expand political rights and civil liberties. By integrating democracy and governance work into the significant investments that we're making, we are gaining important opportunities to support social and economic resilience in Ethiopian society. I very much welcome this opportunity to discuss our programs in greater detail and would love.
Mr. Guest, thank you so much.